Hello listeners, this episode is sponsored by Luke's English Podcast Premium, which is my other podcast service. With Luke's English Podcast Premium, you can pay a relatively small price per month to access loads of other episodes in which I focus only on teaching you English. In those episodes, I use my particular set of skills, which I've developed over a very long career, to help you build your vocabulary, improve your understanding and use of grammar, and help you practice clear and fluent speech with my pronunciation drills. There are video and audio episodes, PDFs to download, and new content arriving every month. If you're interested, go to teacherluke.co.uk/premium info to get started. The money that I make from Luke's English Podcast Premium allows me to continue doing this whole podcast project long term. So not only is it good for your English, it's also a way to support me and my work. teacherluke.co.uk/premium info. You're listening to Luke's English Podcast. For more information, visit teacherluke.co.uk. So, hello dear listeners and welcome back to the podcast. This episode features a four-way conversation between three of my friends and me, recorded on Zoom recently, and yes, other video conferencing platforms are available. And it's basically us asking each other questions in a sort of four-way interview scenario. I think it should be a fun conversation to listen to, but I also think it will probably be a challenge for your listening skills. That's what I expect, but I will let you find out for yourself. Before we get started, I just want to remind you about the YouTube live stream I'm doing on Wednesday the 10th of June at 3 p.m. Central European Time. Did you hear the announcement episode I published at the weekend? Well, if you did, then you'll know all about this. I'm doing another YouTube live stream on Wednesday the 10th of June at 3 p.m. Paris time, and you're invited to join me. I'm going to be messing around, answering questions from listeners in the chat, maybe singing a couple of songs with the guitar, maybe talking about learning English and motivation and stuff, and generally just hanging out with my audience on YouTube. If you can't make it, the video and audio will be published later, so you will be able to watch it or hear it. I'm doing it at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday because my daughter will be in the nursery, or crèche as they call it in France, the daycare centre, and so I'm free to get up to some online antics. And at the weekend, it's family time. So midweek and in the afternoon, my time is just the right time for me to do it. Anyway, join me on Wednesday the 10th of June at 3 p.m. for a YouTube live, Ask Me Anything, Hang Out with Luke type thing. To find the specific location on YouTube, just check the show notes for this episode and you'll find a YouTube link, or just subscribe to my YouTube channel, that's Luke's English Podcast on YouTube, and click the bell icon to receive a notification when I go live. Okay, so that is that. Now, this is number 667 and here is my introduction. Hello, this introduction is quite long, but I've done that on purpose to help you understand what I think will be a difficult episode. But if you really prefer, you can skip the introduction. You can skip forward to approximately 22 minutes in. That's the 22-minute mark. But of course, if you skip forward, you won't know what you've missed, and you'll live the rest of your life thinking, oh, I wonder what Luke said in that introduction to episode 667 that I skipped. What did I miss? And then when you're old and grey and you're near the end of your life and you're asked by a grandchild or a great-grandchild one day, do you have any regrets? They ask you, and you might be able to say, you might manage to say, well, if I have just one regret, it's that I skipped that introduction to episode 667. That's it. That's my only regret in life, because this is obviously how you're going to speak when you're old at the end of your life. You're going to have this sort of voice. The only regret I have is I skipped the introduction to episode 667 and I didn't fully understand that conversation with his friends. I didn't have sufficient context. A lot of the jokes just went over my head. Oh, it was confusing, and then I just gave up on learning English. despite the fact that I speak like this now. And that's when it all went wrong for me. I'm sorry, children. I'm sorry for the things I've done and the things I haven't done, including skipping the introduction to episode 667. It still haunts me to this day. What did he say? What did I miss? I suppose I'll never know. So if you want that to be you, just skip ahead to 22 minutes in. That's the 22-minute mark. Now. Okay, so you're still with me. You didn't skip ahead. Excellent choice. You'll be fine now for the rest of your life because you're going to listen to this introduction. Everything in your life is just going to slot into place now. It's just going to be fine. It's going to be perfect from now on. You'll have no regrets and it's all going to be roses. Just remember, though, when you are sipping cocktails on your own private yacht somewhere in the future, just remember to thank me, okay? Right, so here is the introduction. One of the only good things about the coronavirus pandemic, lockdown, confinement, social distancing, isolation situation that we've all been living in is that it has encouraged people to get in contact with each other more than they normally would. Maybe this is because we're unable to get together physically, if you know what I mean. So we're making up for it by calling each other more, or we're just aware that it's important to stay connected during this weird time in order to make ourselves feel a bit better. But anyway, we've been, I guess, it's probably, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I've been in touch with friends and family more than normal. And that includes my mates, Paul Langton, Alex Love, and Moz. We've had a few Zoom calls together recently just to have fun chatting, and also to generally keep our spirits up. Paul, Alex, and Moz have all been on the podcast before, so I thought it might be fun during one of our Zoom calls for us to reunite on the podcast again for the first time in years, and that's what you're going to hear today. This episode was recorded during the lockdown with me in Paris and the others in their homes in England. This was probably, about 2 weeks ago at least. 2 or 3 weeks ago this was recorded. Now, as I speak to you now, it's coming up to it's sort of second week of June. The lockdown is mostly over in France, which is why my daughter is back in the nursery. But anyway, when this was recorded, lockdown was fully in place, both in France and in the United Kingdom. So the four of us first recorded podcasts together years ago at the Brighton Fringe Festival. The Brighton Fringe Festival? I think it's actually the Brighton Fringe Festival. In episodes 104, 105 and 106. And there was also the Slightly Drunk episode, that's episode 109, and On a Boat, episode 226, recorded on Moz's narrow boat. I wonder if you've heard those episodes. Let me know if you remember Paul, Alex, Moz and me sitting on the beach in Brighton and the creation of Luke Johnson, my evil clone. Do you remember us sharing beers inside Moz's boat one summer evening and talking nonsense in my flat and other weird moments from deep in the episode archive? Super duper long-term listeners will remember those episodes, but for those of you that don't know, here's a quick summary of some background context to help you understand this episode a lot more. Forgive me for rambling on in this introduction as usual. I know this is long, but this kind of context is essential to help language learners understand a conversation between four friends. And listening to a group of friends chatting can be really hard in another language. So this is all necessary context to help you piece together what you're going to hear in this episode, which will help you enjoy it more and learn more from listening to it. So we all first met each other doing comedy in London in 2009. When we did the Amused Moose stand-up comedy course run by Logan Murray, which I've mentioned before. That was a series of comedy workshops designed to help us develop basic skills for doing stand-up comedy. After doing that course, we did various comedy gigs together in London and also shows at the Brighton Fringe Festival from 2010 to 2012 when we recorded some episodes. That's a comedy festival in Brighton, a bit like the Edinburgh Fringe, but smaller and in Brighton. Paul, Alex and I were in a show together called Snigger Happy, and Moz did his own shows in the same venue as us. Here's some intel on each person in this conversation. We'll start with Paul Langton. Paul was born and brought up in central London and has a London accent. As a stand-up comedian in London, Paul used to regularly MC, that's host, one of London's best open mic comedy shows called Comedy Virgins at the Cavendish Arms in Stockwell in South London. And he was also the host of one of the first live-streamed comedy music shows that I know of, which was called Teaserama, and that was at least 10 years ago. But more recently, Paul decided to stop doing stand-up comedy. He made a fairly big career move, and he became a police officer for London's Metropolitan Police Service, which is what he now does on a full-time basis, working on London's streets, fighting crime, a bit like RoboCop. If RoboCop was actually an Irish man called Rob O'Cop, who liked drinking lots of Guinness during his time off. Paul was on the podcast on his own in episode 349, talking about Marvel and DC superheroes, as he is something of an expert in that kind of thing. Basically, he's a tall police geek with a London accent and a penchant for Guinness. Then there's Alex Love. Alex grew up near Stroud, which is in Gloucestershire, which is in the Cotswolds, which is in the Southwest Midlands in England. As well as working as a freelance journalist, writing articles for newspapers, Alex continues to do stand-up comedy, although not during the lockdown, of course. Recently, he's been doing a successful show called How to Win a Pub Quiz, which he's performed at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe to sold-out rooms in recent years. Unfortunately, Edinburgh is cancelled this year, leaving Alex with a huge August-sized gap in his summer, I expect. I say Edinburgh is cancelled. I mean the festival, of course, not the city. The city still exists as far as I'm aware. But Alex has also brought his pub quiz show to various other places, including a recent trip to Australia and New Zealand, where he did shows in different places. He managed to get back home to Stroud in England just before New Zealand closed its borders because of the coronavirus outbreak. So he managed to get out of New Zealand and get back to Stroud just at the last minute, really. This sounded like a dramatic escape, which I imagine was pretty much as exciting as that moment in The Empire Strikes Back, the Star Wars film, when Han Solo manages to escape from the belly of a huge space worm just before it closes its mouth. Remember that scene? I'm sure taking off in a plane from New Zealand in the nick of time was exactly like that. Alex has been on the podcast a few times before, talking about his Edinburgh show, doing a pub quiz with me, and talking about Queen, the rock band. Then, finally, we have Moz. Last but not least, there's Moz. Moz used to work for the BBC as a producer of comedy TV shows, and he worked on various shows, including one memorable flop called Horn and Corden, a sketch show with James Corden, who you might know these days as the presenter of the Late Late Show with James Corden on TV in America. A few years ago, Moz changed career a bit and became a writer, podcaster and tour guide, setting up Murder Mile Walks and the Murder Mile True Crime Podcast, both of which are about real murders which occurred in various parts of London. On his tours, he takes people round various parts of the city and tells them true stories of grisly murders that happened there in the past. You might remember his previous appearances on this podcast telling the gruesome stories of some of those killings. Moz does loads of research into these crimes using court and police records in order to describe what really happened in proper detail. This level of research is one of the things that makes Moz's work unique. The other things are, of course, Moz's animal magnetism and his captivating storytelling abilities. So you can hear those stories by listening to the Murder Mile True Crime Podcast, and you can find a link in the show notes, or by going on one of Moz's walking tours of London. There's also a link in the show notes to those. More recently, Moz started doing storytelling shows on stage in front of live audiences. That's live audiences rather than dead audiences. That's until COVID-19 came along, of course, putting a stop to those live shows. But his podcast continues. Moz also used to do stand-up comedy with Paul, Alex and me, but his performances were a bit different. In stand-up, it's normal to be yourself on stage, but Moz always performed in character. He also used a lot of pre-recorded audio. He would record an audio track beforehand, and then while the audio played through speakers, he would stand on stage in costume and mime his performance without speaking, except maybe for a few noises here and there. One of the characters he used to do was called Sloppy Party Bottom, who was a sort of surreal clown in the proper French clowning tradition. But that description doesn't really do it justice at all. It was very funny and very weird. These days, Moz lives on a narrowboat on London's canal network. And yes, he does have a toilet and a shower on his boat, which I assume he uses. I hope he uses them anyway. So that's Paul Langton, police officer, Alex Love, journalist, comedian, and Moz, murder enthusiast and storyteller and writer and podcaster. I say murder enthusiast, really. I mean that in the most respectful sense possible. Okay, and then there's me, of course. I think you know who I am. But I should remind you that I also do stand-up comedy, although not as regularly as I should, and not at all since COVID-19 came along, of course, because obviously the comedy shows have all been closed down. I performed at the Brighton Fringe Festival 3 years running with Alex and Paul in that show that we called Snigger Happy. In 2010, our show was reviewed by Steve Bennett, who is probably the UK's most well-known comedy reviewer, certainly among comedians. So Steve Bennett is a comedy reviewer. He writes for a very well-known comedy website called Chortle. So Steve Bennett came to our show in 2010. Steve Bennett reviews all of the comedians, all the top comedians. So we were quite sort of surprised to see him in the audience at our show because it was only the first time we'd done the Brighton Fringe. Anyway, there he was. He reviewed us. And I had a really good gig that day and I got quite a good review. Bennett said that I had a promising future. Ooh, exciting. 2 years later, Bennett unexpectedly reviewed our show again. So in 2012, he was in the audience again. But I had a truly awful gig that day and I died on my arse in front of him and the rest of the audience. It was horrible. Naturally, his second review was not positive at all, quite the opposite. This still stings to this day, ouch, when I think about it. I promised Steve Bennett that I would have a bright future as a stand-up comedian. He said something like, I was one to watch for the future, something like that. So I promised that I would have a bright future as a stand-up comedian. And then 2 years later, when the future arrived, I spectacularly failed to deliver on that promise. I think I've told the story of what happened during that awful performance before, so I won't explain it now. Perhaps I'll tell the story again sometime. Suffice to say, it was bad, and I will never really live it down, meaning it was an embarrassing comedy failure that may haunt me for years to come, especially if Alex, Paul and Moz keep reminding me of it, which they often do, because it amuses them. I wanted to interview Alex, Paul and Moz all at the same time. So what we're going to do in this episode is take turns to be interviewed by each other. We're all going to be cross-examined by each other one by one. It's a bit hard to explain this idea, but you'll see. Basically, you'll hear us talking about a variety of topics, like our lives, our comedy stuff, our work, how our careers have been affected by coronavirus, regrets we've had about our pasts, little anecdotes, criticisms we've faced over the years, and of course the occasional bit of toilet humour. What's the purpose for learning English, you might ask? Well, it's just the usual thing, which is that it's vital to regularly listen to authentic conversations in English. It's this kind of immersion, exposure and input which can make a crucial difference to your learning of English. It's the 5 L's. Listening, 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 listening and listening. Obviously, this episode is long, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. You don't have to listen to this in one go. You can pause, you can take a break, come back, and your podcast app will remember where you stopped. One issue, and that's audio quality. This episode was recorded online via Zoom, and despite my best efforts, I couldn't get any of the others to use proper USB microphones. I even sent one by international post to Alex, but unfortunately his laptop is basically kaput, so he had to use his phone. Not everyone is a teched up podcaster with a plethora of microphones at his disposal, you know. So if you struggle to understand this conversation, then, well, you can blame them for not having state-of-the-art microphones, or you can blame me for choosing to do this whole project in the first place, or you can just blame your old English teachers at school who probably didn't give you enough listening practice, or you can blame yourself, or just don't blame anyone. Probably the last one would be the best. Just don't blame anyone. It is what it is. Anyway, the main difficulty that I expect you will have with this is the sound quality. It's going to sound like it was recorded online during a 4-way Zoom call. And that's because it was recorded online during a 4-way Zoom call. And because there are 4 of us, and you might not know Paul, Alex and Moz that well, and because nobody is speaking super slowly to help you understand them, this could definitely be a challenging episode, so brace yourself. But then again, for all I know, this will be fine for you. You can let me know in the comments section. Some of you will be fine with the challenge, but others will find it tricky. But rarely in the real world do we get the luxury of perfect sound conditions, especially when doing video conferencing, which is becoming more and more commonplace during these times. It's okay, Luke. All right. Okay, I don't want to waffle any longer. Instead, I'll now say that it's just time to join me as I chat with my friends. I hope you enjoy it. Your tasks are to A, be able to identify who's talking. Basically, can you differentiate between Paul, Moz, and Alex's voices? And B, can you actually understand what we're talking about? And C, can you use your imagination a little bit and imagine that the whole coronavirus thing isn't actually happening, and that we're all, in fact, sitting around a table, sharing a beer or a soft drink in the pub, and you're there with us, and everything is fine in the world. Okay, so that is all. Now, let's get started, and here we go. So then, the 4 of us are here together, online, talking. No, that's not a good way to begin. Let me try again.
Just think about the fact that this is as good as close to the 10th anniversary of us sitting on the pier at Brighton. You know, inventing Luke Johnson, the evil clone of Luke Thompson.
Okay, let's try and make this more momentous then. 10 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, 10 years ago, the 4 of us were together in Brighton, probably around this time, for the Brighton Fringe Festival. History was made during that fateful week. Podcasts were recorded, and the world came to know Paul Langton, Moz,
hello,
and Alex Love. And it's happening again.
Yes.
Wow.
The coronavirus will not stop us.
No, nothing can stop us.
I don't know how many podcast episodes have occurred between now and the last time the 4 of us were united together. I think it was the last time this happened was when we were on Moz's boat, and we recorded an episode which was called On a Boat.
Clever.
And we talked a load of old shite together, and it was quite good fun. And
then I vomited on the neighbour's boat about an hour later.
Oh, God, yeah, we got very, very drunk, didn't we? Yeah.
What a surprise.
I think we have a motif. I think we've got a pattern.
There was the drunk episode as well, of course, that people may remember. We're deep into the episode archive here. Here we are again.
Yeah, 8 years ago, the drunk episode.
8 years ago, was it the drunk episode?
Oh, God.
Mm-hmm. And we are still drunk 8 years later. Okay, you know what we're going to do? So we know the plan for this episode. We can't spend too long rabbiting on because, we're all getting on a bit. We need to go to bed before it's too late. So the idea for this is that we're going to kind of cross-examine each other, aren't we? That's the idea. We're going to just basically interview each other. It's a fairly loosely prepared concept, but let's make it work. Now, there are 2 rounds, actually. In round 1, all I want to do is just pass around several questions. So the questions are this: what's your name? What do you do? And how has your life been affected by the coronavirus pandemic? Should we set a time limit for this? No.
I reckon we should just keep it brief anyway.
Keep it brief. So What's your name? What do you do? How's your life been affected by the coronavirus pandemic? Let's try and keep that brief, if at all possible. Paul Langton, you're up first. What's your name?
My name is Paul Christopher Stephen Langton, BA No Ons.
And what do you do?
I'm a police officer for the Metropolitan Police Service.
Wow, that's new. The last time you were on this podcast, you were quite far from being a police officer.
He was unemployed.
I was mostly just a drug-grazed criminal, you know.
So you're a police officer. What kind of police officer? A good one?
I'm just a mediocre one at best. But I do iron a good shirt and I polish a good boot.
Are you a uniformed police officer?
I am indeed, yes.
And so what's your rank? And that's rank, not rank. Rank.
Would you like to explain that? I'm just a police constable. I'm the lowest rung of the ladder.
You're police constable. Okay.
Yes.
And what does that involve then? What does that involve?
I nick villains.
You go up to bad people and go, "Oi, you're nicked."
Yeah, and then one of them hands me a small brown envelope, and I go, "On your way, sir. Thank you."
So you do
not really.
Do accept bribes? You don't really. It's just a joke. Okay, wow, you're a police officer. That is amazing. We'll probably find out more when we get to round 2 of this. How has your life as a police officer been affected by the coronavirus? Has it made it easier or more difficult?
I would say 2 words, but I think it is actually 1 word: overtime.
You do lots of overtime.
Yeah, it's been very busy. It's been very busy because obviously it's part of our job is to police the lockdown in London. So yeah, it's been an interesting time to say the least.
So you're one of these people who goes around when there are people gathering together in the park, and you go, "Excuse me, you realise that there's a lockdown in place. You're going to have to move along, please."
I've been lucky because I've sort of been taken off the uniform route whilst coronavirus has been on. I've been doing something else, but my team has been doing that. So it's a weird thing because we're trying to save people's lives, but we also understand, especially in the weather we're having at the moment, it's it's quite painful to have to say to people, "You've been stuck in your house for 2 months, and now we have lovely weather. Have 2 minutes, then go away."
Okay, that's Paul Langton done in round 1. Let's move on to Alex Love. Now you've got your microphone that I sent to you. Is it actually plugged in and working?
It's plugged in. But my laptop's not working, so it's just for show, really.
It's just for show. You're actually still using headphones. I wonder if anyone can understand. We'll come to that in a bit. Anyway, Alex, what's your name?
Alex, what's your name?
We'll come back to that.
Full name, please. Come on.
We'll come back to that. I can't remember.
Bank details. What are your bank details? Okay.
I know them.
So he's passed on the name question. What do you do?
I suppose a journalist at the moment. That's my main source of income.
You suppose you're a journalist?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Have you not read some of his stuff?
What does that...
Only on toilet walls.
This may be toilet walls mainly. What does this may be a silly question, but what does that involve?
It involves writing things, interviewing people, and then... putting the story together.
Putting a story together.
Mm-hmm.
Cooking up a story, just cooking up a bunch of fake news for the mainstream media.
Oh, God.
How has your life been affected? Let's say your working life, because you're also a stand-up comedian, Alex.
Well, I was, but... at the moment, I haven't done a gig since I was in New Zealand. So, that's quite an interesting story. How I was in New Zealand, and around the end of March, so I was due to fly home on the 25th of March, but my airline changed my flights to the 24th, and it turned out the 25th of March was when New Zealand went into lockdown. So I was able to get home the day before the country went into lockdown. So that was a bit of a relief. But yeah, I'm back in the countryside in Stroud in Gloucestershire now, and it's lots of dog walking, lots of countryside and open spaces, so quite a good place to be.
Okay then, let's move on to Michael J. Buchanan Dunn, aka Moz. So, what is your name?
So what was my name again? Can you remind me?
Michael J. Buchanan Dunn, aka Mike/Moz.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
What's your name?
That
you just said it 3 times.
What you said.
I know. Okay. I won't labour the point. What do you do?
What do I do? What do I do? I am a writer by trade. Ooh, exciting! Very good. I write things. I put them on paper, and I speak them. And it's yes.
And
I write up criminal histories, and I turn them into little dramas, and I put them out as a little podcast, and people seem to like it. That's my new life now. I'm a full-time writer.
That's fantastic. And how's your life as a writer? Because, I mean, my audience might know you already from previous episodes where we've talked about the way you research crimes and then write up the stories of them. How has your work been affected by the coronavirus?
It hasn't, which is great. I actually did all my research in December, January and February. So by the time the virus hit, I was already isolating because this is my life. I sit in my little boat and I write all day. So nothing's changed. It's great.
That's really
the only difference is I have to queue up to the shop. That's the only difference.
Okay, right, good. That's the end of round 1. It's exciting, isn't it, this, folks?
Who won?
No one. Literally nobody won. Everybody lost. It's the sign of the times.
I was hoping to get the Moulinex Master Chef.
It's a sign of the times. There are no winners anymore. Except for the 1%, right, guys?
Yeah, giving it to the man.
Okay, now let's move on to the exciting round 2. This is where it all happens. Mm-hmm. Okay, we know the concept here is basically we're going to take it in turns to kind of cross-examine each other. We've all prepared questions. They're all probably completely unrelated questions. And but anyway, we've all got questions, and we're going to sort of take turns to question each other, a bit like Paul does with his suspects.
We won't go into that again.
In the police station. Hello, listeners. How's this episode going for you? Are you all right? I told you it would be difficult. Maybe you're finding it difficult. Maybe you're not. I don't know. What you're about to hear now is round 2, and this is where we take it in turns to answer questions from each person. Okay? So Paul goes first, then Alex, and then me, and then Moz. Okay? So I'm going to read the questions out to you now, just to give you a chance. Because listening back to this, I thought to myself, if the listeners just miss those questions, because the questions are said sometimes quite quickly, and I thought if you miss the question, then you'll be totally lost and you won't know what we're talking about. So I'm going to read the questions out to you now, just to allow you to think about them a bit, and then hopefully you'll be a bit more prepared, and that will help you understand things even more. I'm very cautious that this is difficult for you to understand. It's just I've got an alarm bell. Alarm bells are ringing in the back of my head. As a teacher, I just have a sense of what my students usually understand and what they don't understand. So anyway, I'm doing this to help you. Right, so first up is Paul. Paul answers questions from me and Alex and Moz. And here are the questions. So I ask him this. When questioning a suspect in the police station, have you ever thrown a chair against a wall or slapped a cigarette out of someone's mouth? Because that's the sort of thing you see in films and TV shows. Alex asks Paul, what is your biggest regret from your time doing comedy? And Moz asks him, why do you love Rick Mayall? Rick Mayall was a comedian on TV and on stage, and we all loved him. He was brilliant. So why do you love Rick Mayall? Okay, then it's time for Alex to answer questions. My question to Alex was this. I said, in the episode we recorded together about the rock band Queen, one listener wrote a comment and said, I don't understand any words in this conversation. This guy speaks like alien. How do you respond to this claim? Moz's question, what advice would you give to 8-year-old Alex Love? And Paul's question to Alex, as the only one of us who regularly still gigs, meaning still does comedy shows, what advice would you give to your younger self just before you got on stage many moons ago? So those are the questions for Alex. Then it's time for me to answer questions. Paul asked me this, what do you most miss about London? Moz asks me, what part of your body annoys you the most and why? And Alex asks me, you were once predicted a bright future in comedy. What happened? Then it's Moz's turn. I ask him, Moz, you live on a narrowboat on the Canal Network. What is the most annoying behaviour that you've observed and experienced from others on the Canal Network? And Alex asks him, in your time at the BBC, what's the worst TV show you worked on and why? And Paul asked him, have you ever been tempted to get back on stage as one of your old characters? Okay, so those are the questions you're going to hear, and I will now let you listen to us answering them. And here we go. So, let's see. I think we'll start with Paul. Okay?
Yep.
So the tables are turned.
Who am I interrogating first?
No, we are interrogating you. That's the point.
Oh, I like it. Go on then.
The three of us are going to take turns asking questions at you. Okay?
All right, go on then.
Okay. I'm going to go first. So, Paul Langton, you are a police officer.
Yep.
While questioning a suspect in the police station, have you ever thrown a chair against a wall or slapped a cigarette out of someone's mouth?
I have never thrown a chair at the wall because they're all screwed down for obvious reasons, and you cannot smoke in a UK police station. So no, I haven't knocked a cigarette out of someone's hand. I have said somewhat to someone, "Don't play silly buggers with me, sunshine." I have actually said that, and I've also said other immortal catchphrases such as "You're heading towards a nicking, my friend." It's all the the famous American cop shows. They're all unfortunately they're all very much that fiction. You don't get that nowadays. You actually mostly just get people talk to their solicitors, and then you ask them all the questions about the reasons you've got them there, and they just look at you in a smug manner and say no comment until you get very angry and then leave the room.
Okay, Alex, do you want to go next with your question for Paul?
All right.
Ooh.
This is the 1 minute round, he says, making up the rules as he goes along.
Let's make it the most you can do is 1 minute. So you stop us if we go on too long.
Okay.
And then if we finish before 1 minute, such is life.
Okay. Alex.
Yeah.
Right. So, Paul Langton, what is your biggest regret from your time doing comedy?
Working with you. No. What's my biggest regret during doing comedy? I didn't take it seriously enough. I think I had a good comedy voice, to quote our beloved teacher, Logan, but I didn't spend enough time writing. So I don't think I did myself justice. No, sometimes I signed a check that bounced. I think I regret that I didn't, try to write something. But, it's one of those things. I thoroughly enjoyed the however many years I gave it a go. And I think it was fun. It was good to get to know you. It was good to do the whole Edinburgh thing. Obviously, I've come out with, at least 3 good friends, none of who are on this call, obviously. Hey, see, I'm still writing. So, I regret that I didn't give it my best shot.
9 seconds. Yeah, the rule is you have to do a minute.
You have to do a minute. All right, fair enough.
I'm going to stick to that. Okay, very good. Very good. Moz, what's your question for Paul then, please?
I know what your question's going to be, but carry on.
Paul Langton.
Michael J. Buchanan Dunn.
Thank you. You love Rick Mail. Why do you love Rick Mail?
Rick Mail, ladies and gentlemen, Rick Mail is a comedian from TV in the UK. Very funny man. He's now dead, unfortunately. But anyway, Rick Mail. Why do you love Rick Mail?
I love Rick Mail because it was anarchy. It was just hilarious. There was nothing that I ever saw him do that I thought was rubbish. And he just looked like everything he was doing was just the most amount of fun he could have. I've got it on good authority of people who met him. Sadly, I never did. That he was just a genuinely lovely bloke and just was this ball of mayhem. He was also quite a good actor. He's great. Good writer. I mean, people think it's just slapstick with Bottom and the young ones and everything. But if you ever watched the whole comic strip, some of the stuff they did, and some of his Kevin Turvey stuff, he's just the reason I wanted to watch comedy and the reason I wanted to get into comedy. It was very sad when he died, and it's a shame that they never got to do that last series of Bottom that supposedly him and Adrian Edmondson were talking about doing. A sad loss, and he left quite a young family behind. But yeah. He's the reason I wanted to do comedy in the first place.
Okay, you know what? We're going to move on now to Alex Love. Yeah. So we'll circle back to Paul because you've all got several other questions for him, but we'll circle back to Paul. Yes. So we're going to move on to Alex Love then, and I'll go first with my first question. Are you ready for this, Alex?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Alex, in the episode that we recorded together about the rock band Queen, one listener called Arseny wrote this. He said, "I don't understand any words in this conversation. This guy speaks like alien." How do you respond to this claim? How do you respond to that?
How do I respond? Well, maybe he needs to work on his hearing. I don't know. It was. I don't have the best recording equipment or internet connection, so that's largely why. And I've got another 40 seconds of this, haven't I?
You do, I'm afraid so. You need to explain your lack of...
Well, I just refuse to spend money on things. So, unless I have absolutely no choice. But you very kindly sent me a microphone, Luke, to improve my clarity of speaking on the internet. But unfortunately, I can't... Well, my laptop doesn't work. So... Do
you want me to send you a laptop?
Yeah, can you do that?
No. Sorry, I can't do that. Okay, well, there you go.
I don't want to do that.
What do you think, just as a follow-up question for Moz and Paul, do you think that Alex is incoherent as a speaker?
No, most of the time I've known him, yeah.
In terms of his can you actually understand the words, or is it just that you don't know why he's using those words?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest.
Okay. None of my listeners will be able to tell if you're joking or if you're being sincere in these answers. But anyway.
Well, we will find out as we get more grilling.
Right, let's move on to Moz. Your question for Alex, please.
Alex Love. What advice would you give to 8-year-old Alex Love?
Oh, don't do film studies at university. But I would say to him that there are lots of things you worry about that you don't need to, and it's going to just be a complete waste of time, and I would just hold you back. So, you just got to do things that you enjoy and have some fun, and not worry so much about the little things.
You've got 15 seconds.
15 seconds. Also, don't do the Amuse-Moose course, whatever you do, especially in 2009, because you'll meet 3 people who you should avoid at all costs.
That's the comedy course that we all did. What he's saying there, listeners, is that he regrets meeting any of us. You see, that's funny, isn't it?
This is really lovely, yeah. Really lovely.
Comedy gold.
Okay. And Paul, it's your turn then to ask your question for Alex Love.
Alex Love, hello.
Hello.
Right, my question is sort of similar to vein to Moz's. As the only one of us who regularly, up until recently, still gigs, what minute's worth of advice would you give to the young you just before they got on stage for the first time many moons ago?
It would be to enjoy it, really, and again, not trying to think too much about messing up, and just go with the flow. See if don't worry too much about the material in the script. Just concentrate on enjoying it and having fun, and but also write, work hard, do lots of gigs, be organised, and don't just do your jokes that work. Always try new stuff, and don't get lazy. And I still struggle with that last bit today, because it's very easy to just stick doing what works and what will do well, when really you should always be trying new things. Yeah.
Congratulations, Alex. We'll make sure that message gets back through the space-time continuum to your younger self. Okay then.
Time for Lukey.
Oh, it's my turn, isn't it? Okay then. So we'll start with Paul, the police officer. Hopefully, he won't be asking me a professional question.
No, I've already seen your file. So Luke Thompson, as as I confirmed yesterday via text message, much like myself, you are a born and bred Londoner.
Mm.
And you have been away from these delightful isles for several years now. So I would like to ask you, what do you most miss about London?
Oh, what do I most miss about London? Two things. Three things. All right, the first thing is pubs. Because pubs are fucking brilliant, right? Not only do they sell you beer in large glasses, but also... Generally, you kind of get left alone when you're in a pub. You can just go in and you sit down. You're not at the mercy of a waiter, which is what you get in a French cafe. You're basically at the mercy of the waiter. You have to sit down, and then when you want a drink, you've got to kind of wait for the waiter to come to you, or somehow get the attention of the waiter, which can be difficult. But whereas in a pub, you go to the bar and it's kind of your responsibility to get yourself a drink. And also all the beer is usually good. Whereas in France, that's a minute already. Bloody hell! In France, it's a wine-based country, isn't it? It's generally wine-based. And so beer is not one of their priorities. And as a result, the beer selections often are woefully inadequate, in my opinion. There you go. I'll basically say the other two things. The other one was what I miss is the lack of shit on the pavement.
Right. We've talked about this before.
Again, another little dig at Paris. I love Paris. It's It's totally beautiful. It's an amazing place. But there is poo on the floor. And there's less in London, and I don't. And the other thing is there are more trees in London. I miss those trees. And other than that, everything's great. All right,
nice.
Okay,
well done.
I'm happy with your answer.
Thank you very much, Moz. I'm not going to get arrested then.
No, not yet.
Okay, Moz.
Luke, what part of your body annoys you the most, and why?
Oh my God! What part of my body annoys me the most? What part of my body annoys me the most? It's my toes. My toes really irritate me. They really get on my nerves. They really do. My toes get on my tits.
Why?
Okay, because
he does yoga. I
don't do yoga. That's probably the problem. I should be doing yoga. If I did, I'd probably have healthier toes. So the problem with my toes is that this is really wonderful information. I've got bunions.
Nice.
And as a result, my big toes are swollen and they're painful. And so when it's hot, they swell up and they become painful. And when it's cold, they get cold and painful. So they're hot and painful, cold and painful, or ambient and painful. And that's very annoying.
You can get these little girdles I've seen now that actually reconfigure your toe when you've got bad bunions.
Well, I went to a French... that's 1 minute already. I went to a... Shut up, alarm. I went to a French podologue, which is a foot doctor, and she gave me...
Chiropodist, we call them here.
Yeah. She gave me inner soles for my shoes, which are supposed to do the trick, but I haven't worn them for ages. I needed to wear shoes on a regular basis for several months. So my toes are struggling with the coronavirus. It's like the one thing that no one cares about, the one health issue in the midst of this crisis that no one cares about or writes about or should care about. There are far more important health-related issues going around than
in the first round.
Toes.
We didn't give you your minute to say hello, so that's your coronavirus story then.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Luke Thompson, and I'm a podcaster and English teacher, and my toes have suffered during this crisis, which in context is not very important. Okay.
And you don't speak French, hence you pronounced it podologue.
Podologue? No, I think that is actually how they pronounce it. It says, checking on Google Translate. Right? Google Translate, the lazy language learner's tool. But it is actually useful for when you need to pronounce something quickly in another language. I'm just going to write podologue.
Chiropodiste.
Podologue. Yeah, you couldn't hear that, but I could in my headphones. Podologue.
Hello, my British chums.
Podologue. Okay. Next. Alex.
Right. I've got one that's really horrible, but I've got nicer ones. Do you want the horrible one?
Are we on about your toes here?
Yeah.
Ladies.
Which one of your toes is your least favourite?
Which one of my toes? Which one of my toes? Did you just make that up? You just made that up now?
No.
So, the question?
Question. This is the horrible question. You were once predicted a bright future in comedy. What happened?
What's to say I haven't had a bright future in comedy? It's been all right. I've done quite well, actually. I'm going to do that thing where you turn the question round and just deny it. Actually, I think you'll find that I've done quite well in comedy. I've performed at the Comedy Store in London, which is no mean feat. Not at the Gong Show.
Hang on, no mean feat.
Feet. Mean feet.
Yeah.
That comedy course wasn't wasted, was it, folks?
No.
I've done all right.
Without doing the Gong.
So my mate Paul, this person who I was going to be performing with in London until the bloody coronavirus came along.
Oh yeah, of course.
He did a gig at the Comedy Store, and he filled it because there's lots of French people in London, and I was his support act. So it's not proper. Oh, no. It's not like I did it like on the proper Thursday night or Friday night show. But anyway, I did, and other stuff. But anyway, maybe I didn't quite reach the heights that were predicted by Steve Bennett. He saw me in 2010. He said he's one to watch for the future. 3 years later, he absolutely what would be the phrase? He wrote a very critical piece on me. So a
damning piece.
A damning piece. I promised a future which I didn't deliver to him personally. But for me, I'm all right. I've done okay, in my opinion. Not in no one else's. But I'm all right, I think. So
that was nice.
Moz, it's your turn.
Oh, great.
I think I'm going to go first.
Oh, shit.
With your question. Okay, if I can just find it. So, Moz.
Oh, dear.
You live on a narrow boat on the Canal Network. What's the most annoying...
I think you find that's the anal network. They take the sea off.
What is the most annoying behaviour that you experience in the world of narrowboating on the Canal Network? What's the most annoying behaviour that you've observed or experienced from others on the Canal Network? You've got 1 minute starting now.
Ooh. Because the boat is on the towpath, people tend to come past, and if your window's open, they'll peep in and they'll have a look around your boat. Sometimes it's kind of people who are a bit rude and peeping in. Sometimes it's a very pretty lady with very nice legs. And being a single man, there have been moments when I've been like, "Oh, lovely lady." But quite often, people will peep in if your door's open, and they'll look around and they'll go, "Oh, you've got a kitchen. I didn't realise you had a kitchen." And you go, "Yes, I've got a kitchen." "Do you have a toilet?" "Yes, I've got a toilet." "Oh, okay. Do you have a shower?" "Yes, I've got a shower." And then you have to explain to them how you can do all your basic functions in a boat. By idiots who don't understand that living on a boat is perfectly normal. But I love it. It's a nice place to live, nice neighbours, very peaceful. And for me, I live here nice and quietly, and it's peaceful and good fun, and I love it.
Well done, Moz.
1 minute exactly.
You hit the 1 minute mark like a champion of hitting 1 minute things. Okay. Alex, your turn.
All right. Hello, Moz.
I've got a nice question or a horrible question.
No, that's only for me.
Right. So, Moz, in your time at the BBC, you worked in the comedy department at the BBC.
I was never arrested.
You were never caught.
Listeners, he used to work as a producer of comedy television programmes at the British Broadcasting Corporation. So, let's start the question again.
In your time at the BBC, Moz, what is the worst TV show you worked on and why?
Oh, good question.
Worst TV show.
Easy peasy. It's got to be Horn and Corden. Everyone's favourite worst programme in the world by James Corden. I don't think, Luke, you'll allow me to say the words I need to say.
You can say them.
Matt Horn. It was a sketch show. It wasn't particularly funny. He was quite arrogant around that time. He used to be a very nice guy. When he started out doing Gavin and Stacey, very nice guy. Got very arrogant very quick. Wasn't a good show. Nobody really watched it. He expected a second series. I don't think anyone wanted it to come back. It was dog shit. And everyone knew it, but obviously because he was famous around the time, they let him have a first series, even though it was shit. Which was a shame because there were some good series that didn't get made. We Are Clang was a good series. Didn't get made. Really funny. One of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Cried all the way through. It was so funny. Got canned because the people in charge didn't like it. Whew, another minute.
Hoo-ah.
Well done, me.
Hoo-ah!
I'm hitting this 1 minute mark. Check me out.
In terms of timing, Moz, you are brilliant. Everything, all the other, only in terms of timing. No, I'm joking, of course. Okay, Paul.
I'll go ask him a question.
Paul.
Michael Judas Buchanan Dunn.
Oh, here we go. Just because I killed him.
No, just a very quick question. So basically, when we all met, you were doing your shows like Moz the Cannibal. You had your character like Moz the Modern Man. You were doing Sloppy Party Bottom. You've gone on to do your podcast and your walks. Have you ever been, and I know you were before coronavirus, you were actually doing sort of a live stage show of the podcast kind of thing, or that was in the works. Have you ever thought recently to get the old purple leotard back on and get back on stage as one of your wonderful characters?
Can I just add here that Paul is referring to a character that Moz used to do on stage. The name of the character was Sloppy Party Bottom. The character was marked by the use of a purple tight-fitting leotard and other accessories, including what?
There was a lipstick.
Lipstick, sort of smudged lipstick all over the face.
Was it a flat cap as well? Yeah.
A tie.
Green and black tie.
Green and black tie and a flat cap. And also...
And something that kind of looked like a Hoover, but it wasn't a Hoover.
And this character...
Like a dustbuster or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know. I think it was a garden sprinkler.
And this character would do things like play I Want to Break Free by Queen on a little boombox and do ridiculous, quite sexual miming to it.
Luke, you're making it sound shit.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was brilliant. It was one of the most hilarious things I've seen, actually. Yeah. It was brilliant. Yeah. So that was the character Sloppy Party Bottom, which can't really be described, but it was extraordinary and very funny. So, Paul,
basically, my question was, have you thought about getting back on? Have you ever thought about getting back on stage with one of your characters or one of your one man? Well, I wouldn't even call them one man plays because you sort of play all the characters and there's loads of them. But have you wanted to get back on stage and do that
again? Yes. I do kind of miss it, even though I always say that a lot of my shows, I always regard them as modestly successful failures, which is a nice way of saying that nobody liked them, but I learned things from it. So, Sloppy Party Bottom I really miss. It was a good character. No one understood it. I didn't understand it, but I had a hell of a lot of fun doing it. And it's one of those things that I think it's a character that you have to do every so often. You just have to do it. Don't try and understand it. Just have some fun. And I really enjoyed myself. It was a giggle. And when we did, I did a show with Paul. Paul Vane kindly invited me onto Teaserama, which was revolutionary. It was back in the days, doing a live...
live stream comedy. Who'd have thought I'd be the innovator of that bad boy?
Totally. Live stream comedy. And this was, 8 years ago?
Yeah.
Probably longer. And it was a live show. It was like TFI Friday, which were big in the 1990s, 2000s. It was a fantastic show. Loved it. Would love to do it again.
Right. So that was Moz. And so, wait, who have we had so far?
We've done it all. We've all done our questions to each other. We've all interrogated each other once.
Okay, you are now about to hear the third round, and this is the final round, actually. How's it going, everybody? I'm going to ask you that again. How is it going? Are you okay? Right, you're still listening, so I suppose it can't be that bad. Maybe you're like, oh, God, it hurts. I don't know. Anyway, third round. Let me say the questions in advance for you to give you a fighting chance. So Paul goes first. Alex asks Paul this lovely question. How close have you been to pooing your pants on duty as a police officer? To poo your pants would be if you desperately need to go to the toilet in order to do a poo, but you can't, and you have a terrible accident in your trousers, in your underpants. That is to poo your pants. It's a tragic situation. Anyway, how close have you been to pooing your pants on duty as a police officer? Moz asks him, if you had to go shopping at the supermarket right now, what would you buy? And I ask him, what's the best way to talk to a police officer to avoid being arrested? Moz then goes next, and Alex asks him this. You did a lot of pre-taped audio tracks with your comedy. Why did you never do stand-up as yourself? Paul asks Moz, you do your murder mile walks in London. What is the funniest crackhead story you have from your tours? Because Moz walks the streets of central London, sometimes early in the morning, and it's not uncommon for him to come across London's homeless community, many of whom are drug addicts, crack addicts, heroin addicts. So Paul would like to know the funniest crackhead story that Moz has, an encounter with a crackhead. Sometimes they're probably not funny, but sometimes they can be funny. Anyway, that's the question. And then my question to Moz is, Moz, you live on a boat. What's the wettest you've ever been? Then it was my turn. Alex Love asked me this. When you were young, Luke, what job did you want to do when you grew up? And Paul asked me, what's the most surreal review or comments you've received in the 10 years you've been doing this podcast? So what's the most surreal or odd comment that has been written on your website? And I've received all sorts of weird and surreal comments in the past, including, remember those comments from vampires and stuff? Remember all that stuff? But for some reason, I couldn't think of any examples of those. And instead, I mentioned something else, which is not really the weirdest. Anyway, you'll hear what I say. Then it's time for Alex to answer questions. Moz asks him, why would you make a great or shit astronaut? I asked him, what's the worst or best gig that you've ever had? And Paul asks him, what's the worst heckle you've received on stage? A heckle is when a member of the audience shouts something at you or says something at you. Often it's criticism or abuse or something like that. Heckling is something that stand-up comedians have to deal with. That's just when members of the audience shout things or say things at you and you have to deal with them. So what's the worst heckle you've received on stage? And then at the end, there are some stories of awful gigs. We end up telling a few little stories about bad gigs that we've either experienced or seen, including stories of weird audience members, including a woman with a glass eye, a deaf man, a poor man who had a seizure during the show, another poor man who was a burns victim and he had scars on his face. The comedian didn't notice, but it turns out he had scars on his face because he got burnt once, which is a sad story. We're not making fun of him. Then there was a Scouser who just didn't like me, and more. Okay, so those are the questions you're going to hear. Just in case this episode wasn't long enough, I've decided to add these other extra little bits. But anyway, it's all in order to help you understand and learn this colourful language that we call English. Here we go. Let's do at least one more round here. Okay, so we come back then to Paul Langton, police officer Paul Langton, and Alex, you can ask him. You can ask him a question first, then.
Oh Christ!
Paul Langton.
Yes, Alex Love.
How close have you been to pooing your pants on duty as a police officer?
Good question.
Whoa. How close have you been to pooing your pants on duty?
Yeah.
Doing a poo in his pants rather than in a toilet where one normally does it?
Because Paul has a lot of problems with his bowels, which I do as well.
Yeah. Do you have a problem with that then, Paul? You've got irritable bowel syndrome.
No, I just like Guinness.
So how close have you been to defecating yourself while on duty? You've got 1 minute.
I think this is. I have been quite lucky in the sense that it sounds very twee, but we work together quite well as a team. Me and the other people on my team, we look after each other. I haven't, touch wood, had too many scary moments like that. But you normally do something like you go somewhere and there's blood all over the place. There's someone with a knife and you don't know what's going on, and then the next thing you know, it's on the floor. That kind of thing. I've been very lucky. I've seen some very scary things, but I haven't been in a toilet moment yet. Touch wood.
You've got 20 seconds.
I've still got about 22 seconds.
We want to know about some of these scary moments.
Well, there's not much to say because most things. Yeah, you see the big things on the news where there's knife crime and gun crime and everything, but most of these people are cowards. And when they see 3 or 4 people, my size, 6 foot plus and 30 and 15, 16 stone coming at them in uniform, they drop what they've got anyway. They never want to use these things. People die because mistakes more than anything else. Well, that went all deep, didn't it?
No, it's good. I liked it. I liked it when it went deep.
Oh,
Okay, that was Alex.
Go deep, baby.
That was Alex's
Thank you,
question.
Alex.
Moz, your turn to ask Officer Langton a question.
Thank you, Luke Johnson. Thank you. Officer Paul Langton.
Yes, that's me.
If you had to go shopping right now at the supermarket, what would you buy?
Great question.
And why?
I would buy several cans of the wonderful Irish-based stout Guinness. I would also probably get myself the latest Star Wars movie, the Rise of Skywalker, just to complete the collection more than anything else. It's a shit movie. And I would also get myself some deodorant because I'm sweating like a fat lass and going through it so quickly.
You got
27 seconds. Yeah. Sweating like a fat lass refers to a statement used mostly by people in the north of England that suggests that you are sweating so profusely that you're like a woman who's rather overweight, who's been doing quite a lot of exercise, therefore is sweating buckets.
Okay, I'll let you off the last 5 seconds just in case you say something inappropriate. Okay.
Exactly.
Now it's my turn, isn't it, to ask you the question?
Yeah.
Okay then, Paul.
Yeah, go on then.
My question to you is, I'd like you to give some advice to the general public.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is the best way? And this is based on a little sketch by Adam and Joe. I don't know if you're familiar with this sketch, but basically, what is the best way to talk to a police officer if you've been caught doing something you're not supposed to be doing? So, I'm asking for a friend. So, let's say the crime is something reasonably petty. Let's say you've been caught cycling on the pavement, or you've been caught in possession of a small amount of cannabis, let's say, which is clearly for personal use.
Cannabis, yes, indeed.
You can hear the sirens going on in the background. Can you call them off, please?
Done. Okay, yeah, they're on their way over, mate.
Okay. So, yes. What's the best way to address you as a police officer? I do have options. Do you want the options?
Yeah, go on. Give me the options, and I'll tell you what I think.
Option A suggests that you should be focusing on catching more serious criminals. Like, for example, haven't you got something better to do? Blah, blah, blah. B, pretend to be foreign and say, like, oh, sorry, I am not speak the English. What means crime? That kind of thing.
I've had both of those. Carry on.
Okay. C, try to justify the crime and argue that it's actually quite reasonable and shouldn't be considered illegal anyway. For example, the roads are too dangerous for me to cycle on the road, so it's actually safer if I cycle on the pavement. Or cannabis is actually, so many doctors argue that it's good for your health.
Legalize it. Yeah.
And D, should the person pretend to fancy you or flirt with you as a way of avoiding an arrest? Or E, be very posh and cooperative. And so, oh, I'm terribly sorry, officer. I had no idea. Yes, of course, anything you say, that sort of thing. What's the best approach?
I've had all of them apart from D, which may surprise you.
You haven't had the D?
I haven't had the D. I had several E's once, but that's another story. The best way to address a police officer is with remorse, admit what you've done, and that's it. Simple as that. Everyone thinks that we're after everyone and they're going to, just want to... I mean, the thing is, why would you criminalise someone? And also things like cannabis, someone with a very small amount of personal use, it will be taken off them and off they go, But most people, the trouble is most people, they've, especially, I'm going to sound like a very old man here, I'm only 44, but the youth of today, they've watched too much rubbish. You get some kid who's brought up in Hampstead, a very white, privileged kid, and they're going, "Oh, Popo, why don't you fuck off, you prick, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to pop a cap in your arse." And you're like, one, don't say arse, say ass, because arse sounds weird. And you're not going to pop a cap in anyone, are you, really? So, yes, I would go with E, but no need for the posh.
Okay, just sort of be very cooperative, basically. There you go.
Cooperative.
There you go, folks.
You'll be treated with respect if you give respect back.
Okay. All right, then. Very good. Shall we move on to Moz? Then let's do Moz. Alex, you can go first.
All right. Okay.
Hello, Alex.
Hello, Moz. Let's see what we've got here for you. Right. Now, Moz, you did a lot of pre-taped tracks with your comedy. What I want to know is, you never really did conventional stand-up as yourself. Why was that?
Oh, good question.
Don't look too excited. Do you know what? I'll be honest. I think it was fear. I think it was fear of going on stage and being a little bit freer with myself. Whereas what I enjoyed was writing down, rehearsing, and getting it all tight. But the problem is that, as you know, it doesn't give you freedom to kind of explore an idea and explore time and pacing and stuff like that, which is kind of what I'm enjoying now. Doing the live shows now, I turn up on stage and literally I have like five bullet points, and an hour and a half later I'm bullet point 3. So I'm kind of exploring that now. I'm enjoying the fact that I can just look at an idea and just explore it, have some fun, make some jokes. I do actually make some jokes. Interestingly, I do. I have a bit of a giggle. So, I really enjoy it.
There you go. Bang. Exactly. 1 minute. Again.
I know. Not comedy gold, but 1 minute.
Always do your time. Always do your time. One of the secrets, one of the rules of comedy.
Right, Hills. Have you got that, Hills?
Okay, that was Alex's question.
Alex's
question. That's what happens when I'm thinking and speaking at the same time. Paul.
Yes. Right. So, Michael J. Buchanan, done. My question to you is quite simple. You do your murder mole walks, or sadly not at the moment, but every Sunday you will take your people out for your little murder mole walks around the Soho environs. What is the funniest crackhead story you have from your tours? Just to explain that, because Moz does his tours through central London on a Sunday morning, he normally gets accosted by some member of our wonderful homeless community who takes several methods of Class A drugs. So, go on, what's your best crackhead story?
Oh, God, trying to get this into 1 minute is going to be a nightmare. Okay, I was standing there one day. A gentleman who enjoys crack came up to me. A friend had taught me ages ago, be respectful to them, talk to them like a friend, engage with them, and then they'll eventually walk away. So I was doing that, and I kept looking to my customers, and they kept giving me a weird look. I couldn't engage with them. I had to talk to this guy, and he was waffling on, and eventually he walked away. And as he got far enough away, I turned to everyone and went, "What? Why were you looking at me? What was going on?" And they went, "His penis was hanging out." There was another guy as well who halfway through a show, one of the tours, he was having a dump, having a big old poo, about 3 feet away from us, and he was having constipation problems. And another one at the very start of the tour, this is when I started, I used to do a bit where I'd go down a side alley, and I saw a collection of coats on the ground. And I thought, well, it's just some homeless people having a sleep, so I'll be quite quiet. So I did my bit, and my voice was really low. And then I looked, and I realised it was the coats were raising and lowering very quickly. And it was a homeless couple having a lovely
being
sex
intimate.
session.
Yeah,
couple of homeless people having sex.
Yep, all got to be done.
Yep, why not? When the feeling is right, when the time is right.
When you've got some crack, lovely crack.
Okay.
If you get some lovely crack.
Okay then, right. So Mars, it's my turn then. So Mars, as we've established, you live on a boat. So my question to you is, what is the wettest you've ever been?
Moist.
Your minute starts now.
I've fallen into the canal quite a few times. First time was actually a week after I got the boat. I was moving the boat. I was a novice. The boat got hit by a weir, which is basically a piece of fast-moving water that pushed the boat away. And I was approaching a corner too fast. So being a bit of a dick, instead of trying to gun the engine, get the engine fast and move the boat away, I decided to jump off the boat and push from the towpath and push the boat away. But then I fell into the canal and then realised my engine was still on, the propeller was still moving, and the propeller was coming towards me, which was pretty scary.
Did you die? Or?
Oh, yeah.
No, what I did was I managed to get the boat out of the propeller to stop moving, and then I was like, great, let's try and get off the towpath. So that's a minute. Mm-hmm. Oh shit! I grabbed hold of the towpath, and it was full of grit, and I couldn't get a grip. And then my boots started to fill with water, and I started to sink under the water. And as my head bobbed underwater, I went, "Help!" As this guy walked past with his dog, and he went, "All right, mate," and walked on.
Didn't even help you.
What
he was like, "All right, good morning," and he carried on.
Didn't even help. He walked past with his dog as I was going under, with a boat, with a 15-ton boat still dragging me away. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well,
good day.
Thankfully, you're still here to tell the tale.
Just about.
Okay, so that's Moz's round, and
I am round.
Yeah, that wasn't a fact. That was more of a statement of what's just happened. Alex, is it you next? I've lost track. I don't know.
It is. Yeah, it's Alex. Yeah.
Okay then.
Have we done? Has it been your turn again, Luke?
No, we can do you can do me now if you want.
Yeah.
Oh, you said that before.
Yeah. I'm waiting to say that one.
I don't mind.
Okay, well you can do me then. Come on. I'm ready. Right. I'm ready.
Okay, I've got a good question for you this time.
Ooh.
What job did you want to do when you were growing up, other than realistic jobs, not like being in a band?
Okay. When I was in secondary,
he was in a band.
Yeah, well, not as really as a job.
Not a realistic job.
When I was in secondary school, for some reason, I wanted to run a leisure centre. Seriously.
Mr. Britas.
Exactly. It was two reasons. One was that I was really into sport, like every single sport. My worldview was quite narrow, and it was just sport. This was all I was interested in. Every single sport, I loved doing it, and the prospect of a sports centre was just the most amazing thing for me. Sports equipment, like a little football pitch with those goals that are not full size, and tennis courts, and badminton, and trampolines, and all that sort of thing was really the stuff I used to dream of. And the other reason was because I was genuinely a fan of the Britas Empire, and I enjoyed the fact it was set in a sports centre, and I thought I could do that. And so I was I genuinely wanted to be the manager of a sports centre, and thankfully that didn't actually happen.
Actually had a really dark ending, the British Empire.
Did it? Did he have a nervous breakdown or something at the end?
It was all a dream.
Watch it. YouTube it.
It was all a dream.
YouTube it.
Listeners, the British Empire was a kind of sitcom, a comedy show on British TV about a man who ran a leisure centre, a sports centre, and he was an idiot, of course, because all British sitcoms are all about an idiot who gets everything wrong. And it starred Chris Barry, who is more famous for being Rimmer in Red Dwarf. But it was pretty good. It wasn't exactly Alan Partridge or Fawlty Towers, but it was not bad. Okay,
good.
There you go. Fine, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to run a leisure centre. Instead, I just decided to keep all the leisure for myself instead of offering it to other people. I was like, why give it away? Why sell it on? Keep it. That's what I thought.
Your leisure is my pleasure.
Next question.
Right then, I have a question for you, Mr. Luke Thompson.
Okay.
Right. We've already talked. I've already mentioned Moz's Wondrous podcast. Obviously, we're hoping to be in yet another episode of your splendiferous Luke's English podcast.
We'll see how this turns out. This might not get published.
It's been going for how long now?
It's been going for 10 years plus, more than 10 years.
10 years plus.
Well, this episode.
Yeah.
This episode's been going for
What is the most surreal review you have received during that 10 years?
The most surreal review?
Or criticism. You know, when you get your feedback via social media. Have you ever got one and you literally sit there and go, do you remember when you used to do your stand-up and you talk about doing like the Rainbow Road and brushing the side of an elephant? Have you ever had anything like that? You just read it and thought, what are you talking about? Okay,
right. So there's a regular listener who I've got to sort of pay my respects. She's not dead. No, I've got to
pay homage to. I don't know.
Yeah, I've got to sort of say hello to this regular listener who listens to everything, all the episodes, and as far as I can tell, episodes of everyone else's podcasts too. All other people's podcasts and YouTube channels for learning English. She seems to comment on all of those as well. And no one really knows who she is, but she comments on everything, and she rarely replies to other people's comments. She's a bit of a mystery, but she writes in this weirdly sort of poetic, random fashion. And I'll give you an example. Her name is Molly. Hello, Molly. I'm sure that you're listening. I hope you don't mind me bringing this up as an example of an odd, surreal message that I've had, or comment or review or something. But, I mean, to be honest, Molly's comments are quite sort of odd in a way. It's almost like she's trying to use loads of phrases that she's learned and stringing them all together in a way that is, on one hand, very poetic, and on the other hand, quite weird and a little odd and not completely coherent. So this is the most recent episode at the time of recording this. I've already done a minute, but I make the rules. Most recent episode was a chat with my American comedian friend called Sebastian, and also I tested him on English slang. And she wrote this: a test of British slang through Luke's English podcast is the most American thing ever, while living and coping amid COVID-19 pandemic. Combining British English and American English is blowing us away. A bit of levity keeps us alive, which is actually a fairly reasonable comment. Luke is a teacher who never rests. This will be an episode long remembered. Tar.
I like it.
It's nice, actually.
At the end.
It's nice. It is sort of poetic, even if sometimes it doesn't make complete sense. So she's a bit of a mystery, is Molly Ty, but there you go. I thought that I would...
She sounds like quite a sponge, like she's just listening to every single podcast about learning English, and it's just...
Yeah.
Everything's getting into a mix match.
Absorbs all these phrases and things, and just blah, 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 sort of, they all come out in these poetic comments. So that's the best thing I could think of on the spur of the moment. But I have had many, many, many odd comments and messages. Normally people who sort of like make basic mistakes, like they get my name wrong, like I'm constantly being called Mr. Luck, and it's Luck's English Potcat or Luck's English Postcard. So they get my name wrong, even though it's literally in the title of the podcast, and they spell podcast wrong, even though that's also in the title of the podcast as well, and many other odd little things. But that's what happens. Things get lost in translation, don't they? For learners of English, when they write things in English, sometimes it comes out a bit weird. So there you go.
I had there's one of the guys I trained with at Hendon. He's a very lovely guy who's Brazilian. He moved over here about a year before he joined the force, and his English is very good, but his written English. So we had to write statements, like fake statements, to learn how to do them right. And it's like, and we were given a role play where a victim comes into the station and tells us something, and then we had to write a statement about what was told to us. And what he was trying to say was, I can't remember the name of the people in the role play, but Luke came into the station and told me what happened when Moz and Alex came to his house. But he put Luke came in and I had intercourse with Luke as he told me about the intercourse between Moz and Alex. And it was just so actually, I said, but I wouldn't say correct. But we were just sitting there in stitches because he didn't realise what he was talking about.
Classic case of false friends. I suppose in Portuguese to have intercourse with someone means to talk to them, whereas in English, obviously, it means to bone them with your penis. I suppose, right? To have sex with them is what it means.
I don't know. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Is that what you're teaching? Is that what you want to teach your listeners? That sexual intercourse is referred to as boning with your penis?
No, I should probably edit that out, shouldn't I, guys? I mean, it's basic common sense would say that I shouldn't. But, there are alternative ways of saying it, listeners, and that's, what I'm essentially trying to do. You all know to have sex with someone, right? But you can have fun with it sometimes and say bone someone with your penis. What have I done with my life? I'm done.
We've got to ask Alex.
We've got to ask Alex. Okay, then, Alex. So, Moz, do you want to go first?
Oui. Okay. Alex Love.
Moz.
Why would you make a great or a shit astronaut?
Ooh, good question.
Can I be both?
You can be both if you like.
Well, I think, obviously, space travel, I love space travel. I'd be very enthusiastic about it. And I'd probably get very excited about being in space. The problem is I don't really know a lot of science. So I might not be the front of the queue for them to send to space because I lack science knowledge. But I might make up for that in enthusiasm in just wanting to go to space and float around and...
Didn't they send monkeys into space at one point?
Yeah.
Don't necessarily need scientific knowledge. That's all. Sorry.
No, but I think I might rank below the monkeys in terms of.
Sorry, did you say rank below the monkeys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't wank below monkeys, Alex. They frown on that at NASA. Anyway.
Yeah. So I'd love to be an astronaut. Very much up for it. If Elon Musk is listening, I'm happy to go. Up in space. I'd like to come back down again, ideally still alive. But, options and all that can only work with what you got. So
there you go. You nailed one. You nailed 1 minute right on the head there.
Woo.
Excellent. Okay, I'll go next. So, Alex.
Elon Musk sounds like a Poundland body spray. I've just realised that. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Does sound like a very cheap cologne. I'll have a 2-litre bottle of Elon Musk, please. That'll be $2.99.
That'll be 50p.
Yeah. So, Alex, you're normally a gigging stand-up comedian. What is the worst or best gig you've ever had? And you can choose. You can either tell us about the worst gig or the best gig that you've ever had.
It's going to be the worst gig, isn't it?
It's up to you.
Were we all there?
I think the worst gig is going to be more interesting because failures are more interesting than successes. Right, so this was a terrible gig last year, and it was on my birthday, and it was in Harold Shipman, the serial killer's hometown in Yorkshire, a place called Tubmarden, and I was comparing. It was the first night that they ran a comedy gig at the venue, so the audience are always they don't really know how to behave, and because I'm from the south of England and speak quite quickly, they couldn't understand a word I was saying. So they just weren't really laughing at all. And it was on my birthday, and they hated me. And it was in Harold Shipman's hometown, the serial killer. And I think that's quite nice to have died on my arse in Harold Shipman's hometown, the famous serial killer.
Many people died in Harold Shipman's hometown, but you're one of the ones who actually got out of it.
I survived, yeah.
That's good.
There you
go. 1 minute. Harold Shipman, listeners, was a serial killer. Moz could tell you all about him. It'd probably take him about 10 hours, but it would be very entertaining. No, it's not a bad thing. God,
how very dare you?
Check out my episodes and how long they are.
Yeah.
Convicted of 15 murders. They've identified 257 potential victims, but they know it's 450 plus.
Jesus, really? 450 plus?
Yeah.
So he was murdering. We know he was murdering for at least 25 years as a general practitioner and signing off the deaths, which means that for 25 years he was murdering at least 3 a week. There you go.
So these were like probably
at least he's productive.
Older patients or people who are already sick coming in complaining of things, and then they die, and it turns out that he's killed them, and he signs off the deaths as something else, and he gets away with it every time for 25 years.
Mars, I have a question about that. Is he the most prolific serial killer the world has ever known?
There's a Russian guy who everyone always says is the most prolific, but the problem with a lot of these guys is it's hard to pin down the numbers. Whereas with Harold Shipman, because he was a GP and he was signing off, because he was the doctor and he was signing off the death certificates, we've got kind of written proof of the people who he kind of went into their house and signed off their deaths. But because he had most of the bodies cremated, because as a doctor, it's kind of his prerogative. Many of them we can't prove. So, yeah, he's most likely the most prolific serial killer ever.
Bloody hell.
Wow. Well,
where were you, Langton?
I was in a pub.
In Liverpool.
I was in Liverpool. Fucking me, come up. I have my question for Alex now.
Yeah, all right.
Alex Love, my question to you is on a similar vein. Not so much about your worst gig, but in all your many, many comedic endeavours, what's the absolutely couldn't come back against the heckle you've received?
What's the
worst heckle you've received on stage?
Interesting. Well, I pride myself on being able to deal with hecklers quite effectively. But when I've been completely unable to really deal with it, it's probably gigging Caterham, South London. Yeah. And it was in an art centre, and there was a lad on the front row who was autistic, and he was interrupting during the show, and I just couldn't really deal with it because you don't really want to make it awkward for the audience. You don't really want to make him feel bad. You don't want him, because if you come down too hard, he might not understand, he'll get upset, and then the audience will turn against you as well. So you just kind of have to try and have fun as much as you can with it, but know that you can't really win.
That is 1 minute. Nice. So the challenge of dealing with an autistic heckler who, yes, I can imagine that would be tricky.
I think the funniest one I've ever seen, and I think we were all there. I know Moz was, I know Alex was, I'm pretty sure Luke was as well. When we all did a comedy show together in Edinburgh, run by Moz, called Snigger Happy, where it was like a gang show. About 5 of us went on during the hour. But one night, the ballroom was a great room, actually, really busy room. And a friend of ours called Mark was comparing, and there was a couple in the front row. And I think it was they were very, very drunk. And I think the woman, Mark was getting really annoyed because the woman wouldn't, look forward. She just kept on darting around and not making not watching the stage. And Mark had a very funny bit about the R&B singer Gabrielle, who always covers her face, one side of her face, because I think she had a lazy eye. I can't remember, something like that. But he was going on about Gabrielle, and this woman was engaging. And then Mark, being Mark, went, "Look, are you just going to bother looking at me or what?" And she went, I am trying to look at you. It's just at this eye's glass.
Oh.
So she had the glass eye to compensate. She kept on looking in the wrong direction.
I have something to add to that.
Yeah.
Something to add to that. Same venue, same year, same show.
Yeah.
I was comparing. I thought of this bit of audience participation where I'd ask a couple in the front row, so you're a couple, who wears the trousers? And expecting the woman to say me. So I said to the man, well, what do you wear? And it was obviously very funny. And so I did it in Edinburgh. I think it may have been my first ever gig in Edinburgh, actually. And there was a front row, quite a nice couple. And I said, so you're a couple who wears the trousers? And the woman said, me. So I said to the man, what do you wear? And he responded in sign language. He was deaf. So
oh dear.
Couldn't really do much with that.
Oh, great days. Great days.
There was a gig I was just a participant in Edinburgh Fringe. Remember the year when we were there, when it was like, for Edinburgh, it was like early 30s degrees. It was super hot. It was a heat wave.
Yeah.
Everyone was dying. And I was up in the attic in one of these rooms just watching this show, and it was a character act. And this guy stayed in character throughout. And there was a gentleman on the front row, and the lead act did a joke. It wasn't particularly funny, and the guy on the front row went, oh. And everyone was like, that's a bit rude, isn't it? Guy did another joke. Guy on the front row, oh, like that. And literally threw his head back really far back and really was making a show of how really bored he was. So the guy did another joke, and it happened again. He literally went, oh, fuck, like that. And everyone was like, the guy literally came forward. He was like, okay, what's fucking going on? He came out of character and said, why are you doing this? Why are you disrupting my show? And his mate turned to him and said, I'm sorry, I think he's having a seizure.
No.
In the middle of the show.
He was having a heart attack or something like that.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that? Literally, he actually stayed in character and went off stage, got a doctor, came back on stage, stayed in character. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one? There was one Ruby Tuesdays that we did once, ages and ages ago. So Ruby Tuesdays, listeners, was the comedy show that we all used to do together. It was on Tuesdays, obviously, like one Tuesday a month. And I came up with this routine where I had an accordion.
Yes.
Do you remember my accordion routine? Do you remember that? And so I was up, and the sort of the joke, part of the joke, it never really worked, but the part of the joke was that I would do this whole spiel about how I'd spent my whole life learning to play the accordion, and my dad had left me the accordion on his deathbed and all this stuff, building it up and up and up, and then at the end I'd play, and I was rubbish. And I was like going through all this stuff with the accordion on, and there was a guy, a drunk Scouser, in the audience, and he was going, when are you gonna play the accordion? Like that.
I do remember that.
When's he going to play? Like that. And then, you know, people were like, shut up, you know, trying to tell him to shut up. And he was like, but it's not funny. It's not funny. Is what he kept saying. And I was like trying to do my accordion thing. And in the back, yeah, but it's not funny. It's just not funny. Which is really great for your confidence when you're just sort of starting out as a stand-up.
Well, I remember seeing an interview with of the aforementioned Rick Mail years ago. Where he was asked, I think he'd just done one of his tours with his show Bottom, like his live tours with Dave Edmonton. And the interviewer said, what's, in all your history of gigging, what's the one city that you hate going to? And, you know, they were being very, what's the word, political. They were being very, trying to be nice about everywhere.
Oh, they were trying to be very fair and
diplomatic.
Yes,
diplomatic.
That's the word. And he was saying like, no, you know, everywhere's got its good places, its bad places. Everywhere's lovely. And Adrian Edmondson was being very diplomatic, and Rick Mail just went, Liverpool, can't fucking stand it. And supposedly, a lot of comedians, even Scousers, have said that they hate going to Liverpool because, and this is coming from someone who lived there for 7 years, Scousers do think they're really funny, so they don't heckle, so they don't come back at something you've said. So it's not a clever heckle. They don't boo, you know, which is an easy heckle. They just automatically think they're funny. So that's why that stuck in my head, because he probably didn't even mean to cause you any, you know, embarrassment or insult. You're just like, mate, what are you going to do? You got an accordion. You're going to fucking play it or what?
Yeah.
Have you got a joke? I don't get it.
Exactly. And he was kind of like going around to everyone, like because people were saying, "Shut up, mate," to him. Like Gemma was going over to him and going, can you be quiet, please? He's trying to do his and the guy was like, but I don't think any of you understand. Don't you see? It's just not funny, is what he was saying. Like, what's the matter with you? Why are you telling me to shut up? It's just not funny. So it's just it's quite reasonable, really. Is probably what he was thinking.
Talking about Liverpool and generally accents, sometimes it's really difficult when you're heckled and you can't understand what they're actually saying, but the rest of the audience can. So
what do you do?
You can't understand. Well, you kind of just have to get someone to tell you what they're actually trying to say, and that by that point, you kind of lost your upper hand.
Track of thought,
your moment.
The one thing you see about heckling, because obviously I was on stage myself, but I also spent a lot of time sort of doing not the backstage stuff, but work in front of house and stuff. So you'd watch a gig from the quite a big room from the back, and you'd be on stage. When you're on stage, you're so tunnel vision, you're so hyper alert to everything that's happening in an audience. No matter how funny your joke is, no matter how well your joke is going, in a room full of 100 people, you will see the one person who's not laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And with a heckler, a heckler might, because they're in your line of fire, they're in your vision. Heckler might do like, that's not funny, is it? And only you see it. And the amount of time I've been at the back of like somewhere like Up the Creek, a very famous comedy club in South East London. You're at the back of the room and you see a comedian doing well and then just pausing, and then looks like they're just picking on someone because you don't hear anything, you don't see anything, and then afterwards you'll say, "What happened there?" They went, "Oh, that guy third row back with the red shirt on. He told me that I was shit," and we were like, "Nobody heard him," and it's the weirdest thing in the world to see. That a heckle can be the most powerful heckle. Can just be someone, just mumbling under their breath, or just going, or looking at a watch, or not laughing when everyone else is. You just go, what happened there? Why are you doing that? What's happened there?
Yeah, it's very hard. Very hard for a comedian. Sometimes you got to just carry on and ignore things that you've seen, but the audience probably aren't aware of, because the audience are basically just listening to you through big speakers. They can only see you.
Yeah.
So they're not aware of what other people are saying so much. Yeah, but it's hard to ignore little things that you notice, isn't it? Sometimes, Moz?
I witnessed one a little while ago. Back when I was gigging many years ago, I think I was doing Sloppy Party Bottom that night. I was at a gig, and Mark Davidson was there. He did, for listeners, he does a character called Mr. Susan. And Mr. Susan is a fantastic character. He's kind of a character who could be from space. He doesn't really understand life, and he kind of gets things kind of mixed up slightly. And we were in a room. It was a small room, but there was a really bright front light. So all you could actually see was the front row, and nothing. Actually, in fact, you couldn't even see the front row. Everything was dark when you were on stage. And Mark has this routine where, like, he's trying to engage with the front row, and he says to one of the audience, he goes, "Yeah, you are very beautiful. You are very beautiful. You're very beautiful. You, not so much. What happened to you? Was your face in a fire?" Like that. And it always gets a good laugh. And one night when I was with Mark, the audience guy went, "Yeah, actually it was." And we didn't realize we couldn't see it that night. It was so dark, literally. And we went up, and the guy literally one side of his face was entirely burnt.
So just bad luck that the guy he did that joke to on that evening happened to be a burns victim. Oh God.
Yeah. Mark literally at the end of the night, he found the guy and he was like, "I'm so sorry, look, I couldn't see you." And he literally dragged the guy, tried to get him near the stage to go, look, the light was on, I was blinded, I couldn't see anything. It was like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You can only apologise so much.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for being on this episode of the podcast. I'm not quite sure what the point of all this has been, except that it's been fun to just sort of ask each other stupid questions and see what happened. And I hope that my audience were able to understand all of it. I expect it was quite difficult for various reasons. I'll do a little thing at the end probably. But anyway, thank you, all three of you. It's probably bedtime now, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, it's getting that way.
I think so.
Wanky clock.
Paul's going.
Yeah.
Paul's going to work in the morning, to not to protect and serve. That's the Americans. What's do you have a catchphrase? Do the Metropolitan Police have a
to police by consent?
To police by consent.
What?
That's
awful.
It's not as catchy as to protect and serve, is it? To police by consent. So you'll be policing by consent in the morning. Mars is going to court.
Well, I'm doing e-court. because of coronavirus, everything is done via video link now.
Alex, do you have any obligations in the morning?
No.
Okay.
None.
Yay! Got to walk the dog.
Walking the dog, yeah.
All right.
Going to the supermarket.
Have a poo?
Have a poo. Have 3 poos, actually, I think, before I go out for a walk.
Oh, no.
Best be on the safe side. Best be on the safe side.
What about yourself, Luke? What are you up to?
Well, you know what? It's my birthday tomorrow. Yay!
Oh, happy birthday!
Yeah. So,
bon anniversaire.
Tomorrow I'm going to be opening numerous presents. And I think actually because it's sort of a public holiday, even though it's not a public holiday, but because Thursday is a public holiday, everyone's taking the next day off. So we are going to take the day off too, and probably go somewhere now that we can, somewhere within the sort of limit that we're allowed to travel, and go and have a picnic on the grass somewhere, which will be nice.
Nice,
yeah,
lovely.
There you go, gentlemen. It's been lots of fun. And thank you very much for taking part in this. And have a lovely day tomorrow and a lovely weekend. Stay healthy, take care, and speak to you soon.
Yeah, happy birthday, Luke.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to press stop on the recorder now. Boop. Okay, everyone, that's it. I would just like to thank Paul, Moz, and Alex for being on the podcast today. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Moz. Thank you, Alex. I hope that, listeners, I hope you enjoyed joining us on our Zoom call. I know the audio quality might have made it a bit tricky for you to follow all of it. Let me know. I expect someone will comment that my friends sound like Alien or something, but they don't to me. And by the way, it's it would be your friends sound like aliens, or your friend sounds like an alien, not just your friend sounds like alien. Like what? Anyway, they don't sound like aliens to me. They sound fine. Remember, check out Moz's podcast. It's called the Murder Mile True Crime Podcast, and it's available on all good podcast apps and probably some bad ones as well. Alex doesn't have a podcast, but he is still writing a blog, which you can find at alexlove.co.uk. If you want to find Paul, well, just commit a crime in the London area and he'll probably find you. And then you might end up having a one-to-one sit-down interview with him in a police station. That's an interesting approach to finding ways to talk to native speakers, isn't it? Just get arrested. The police will ask you lots of questions. You'll have a long conversation with some sort of police officer of some description. And you'll have loads of people to talk to in prison as well. Yay! A new approach to learning English. By the way, I had a lovely birthday. Thank you for asking. Don't know if you remember that. Yeah, I had a birthday. They mentioned it. I had a lovely birthday. Thank you very much for asking. I had nice presents and things. Yes, thank you for sending me birthday wishes. If you sent me birthday wishes, that was very nice of you. Those who didn't send me birthday wishes, I will still accept your birthday messages quite gladly. And I'm still open to gifts, flowers, chocolate, gold bullion, and cash donations in most currencies, but especially in pounds sterling. If you don't know my age, I wonder how old you think I am, probably just based on the sound of my voice. How old am I? How old is my voice? If you're wondering about my gifts, I got some new trainers from my wife, which was nice, and I also got a multi-track recorder for making music. If I actually have any time, I plan to record some music, so I got a digital multi-track thing, which will allow me to record bass, guitar, keyboards, vocals, drums. Now all I need is some actual musical talent, and I might be able to create something half decent. We will see. I was also treated to a birthday cake of pancakes in bed. That's a cake made of pancakes with candles and little paper decorations. And the candles set the little paper decorations on fire. So the whole thing was fully ablaze by the time the cake got to me. So essentially my wife brought me a fire hazard directly to my bed first thing in the morning, which was actually very funny and not as dangerous as it sounds. Anyway, I had a nice birthday, if you're interested. And if you're not interested, I still had a nice birthday. How about you? Are you okay? Are you doing okay out there in podcast land? I sincerely wonder how this episode was for you. I really enjoyed getting together with Paul, Moz and Alex again on the podcast, and I hope you did too, but I expect it was difficult to follow. Let me know in the comments section. Please don't say that you think my friends are aliens, because they're not. You know, difficult to follow isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's the sort of episode that challenges you a bit and pushes your English skills a bit further, in theory anyway. It's almost time to finish. Just before we go, I'd like to say, don't forget my YouTube live stream, Wednesday the 10th of June at 3 p.m. Paris time. Go to my YouTube channel, Luke's English Podcast, and subscribe and tap the bell icon to get notifications. And I hope you can join me. It should be fun. In any case, it's now time to draw this all to a close. Thank you for listening, and I will speak to you soon. But for now, it's just time to say goodbye. Bye. 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 Thanks for listening to Luke's English Podcast. For more information, visit teacherluke.co.uk.